Hello, my sunshines. I'm so glad you're here for your session with me, Dr. Deborah Brown. And today we are going to be talking about something that I bet you have been thinking about and thinking about and thinking about. And what we're talking about is persistent negative thoughts. So everybody has them, but what's in your head? And is what's in your head making your life really difficult? If it is, then let's talk about it because we all get stuck on things a little longer than we need to. And sometimes that can lead to some pretty bad things and it can ruin your life. So let's examine today what's in your head and let's talk about how we're going to address that. So, first of all, we're going to learn how to examine our thoughts. We're going to learn to objectively look at our thoughts and say, what is this really? Is this a moment or is this forever? We're going to challenge our thoughts. Am I correct? And we're going to decide to attach to new and more helpful thoughts. So, sounds really simple, right? It's not, but there are a lot of things that can make it a lot easier. And if you can make this one shift in a small, small way, you can actually change the way you feel every single day. And I don't know about you, but I'm always looking for ways to make sure that I'm feeling the best I can. So, let's get started. So let's define some things first. Let's talk about some of the words that people use when they talk about what's in their head. And the first is racing thoughts. So I hear people that say to me, my thoughts, they just spin and they spin and they spin, mostly when people are trying to sleep. That's called racing thoughts. That's your brain trying to figure things out, but that is not a useful way. A thought racing through your head and another thought coming is a symptom of anxiety. And it's a symptom that says there's a little bit too much going on and you got to sort it out. The other word is rumination. Rumination is where we get stuck on something and we think about it over and over and over. And again, that's an anxious behavior. That's us trying to figure out an answer. And it's not a bad thing in small doses. I want you to sit and think about things and figure things out. But I don't want you to do it for days and hours and stay up at night doing it. So, we're going to learn a little bit about how to shut that down today. So, the statistics say that 75 to 80% of your thoughts every day are negative. That's terrible that you're walking around 80% of the time with a negative thought in your brain. And the high percentage of those thoughts, a very high percentage of those thoughts, those negative thoughts, are repetitive, which means that you're probably ruminating or you have racing thoughts. And this, even in the smallest dose, is not good because what happens is when our brain gets stuck on things, our brain likes familiarity. It likes what considers to be comfortable or regular. And when you get into patterns of rumination and racing thoughts, you can eventually develop a really bad case of anxiety because you get stuck in the world of your head instead of the world that's actually happening outside of you. So, I want you to imagine for a second if you had a pet parrot and the pet parrot sits on your shoulder and it talks in your ear all day and it tells you that you're a failure and that you're not beautiful enough, you're not smart enough, that you're not manly enough. Your parrot whispers all of the negative things into your ear all day. What would you do with that parrot? You'd take it off your shoulder and you'd leave it in the cage, right? You might even get rid of it. That's kind of what you're doing to yourself if you have 80% of your thoughts being negative. It's like a little parrot voice in your ear telling you all of the things that you need to remember in order to stay not good enough. So I want you to consider that a lot of those voices, as we've talked about in previous sessions, came from other people, but now it's you using them on yourself. So we have to stop that. So there's a deeper truth in you. There's a deeper part of you that is the part that imagines a different life or a little bit of a better life or maybe just a change. But that part can't surface when that voice keeps it down. So I want you to think for a minute. Think about as you walk through your day, how you wake up in the morning. What are the persistent negative thoughts that you're having? What are the themes? What is the voice saying to you? What I usually find is that when people have struggles with negative self talk or pervasive negative thoughts, it's that there's an imbalance in their life. And there's a primary imbalance that's very simple to think about. And it's the balance between fear and joy. So, fear is what those thoughts are about. If 80% of your thoughts are negative, they're probably fear based. I'm afraid of what they'll think of me. I'm afraid I'll do it wrong. But fear is supposed to be there. You're supposed to have fear, but it's supposed to be transient and only related to the thing in front of you. It's not supposed to stay all the time. Joy is sort of the opposite. Joy is what rises up in us when something really beautiful or touching happens. We need more joy than fear. And I want you to think for a minute, if I asked you, what are the joyful moments of the past week? Can you think of any? Think for a second. What are the joyful moments you had this week? You better be able to come up with at least one, or something's not going right. If I asked you what the fearful moments are, it would be okay to come up with one. That would be okay. But to come up with one for every day or one that you carried around, I want you to think about why that is and how that's not real good. And what's your fear and joy balance? Joy is hard to cultivate. It's hard to find because it really doesn't come from outside, it comes from inside. But joy comes from the ability to be present and to be in what's happening so that you can be allowed to feel something really remarkable. And joy can be a song that you hear that you haven't heard before. It could be a smile from somebody that walks by you. It doesn't have to be massive. But if we're not present and we're wrapped up in all those negative thoughts, you don't make any room for joy. And I don't know if you've ever heard someone described as joyless before. You can picture that face, right? A joyless person. I want to make sure that your joy is present on your face and in your life and not that 80% negative thought balance, because that's way too much. So there's a correct message that the parrot should have been speaking into your ear. And the general message is, I'm going to be okay. Or even if I'm not okay, I'll figure it out. It's very simple, but it's a message that I learned very late in life. I learned very late in life that I was going to be okay. And if things happened, I'd figure it out. Even if the worst thing happened, I would have to figure it out. And one of the best messages that I give in therapy sometimes to people, one of the most powerful ones, is when somebody's going through something really terrible and they're stuck in it. The biggest one I can think of off the top of my head is breakups. When people are in a breakup, boy, they think the world is ending and they think nothing is ever going to be right again and their life is over. And any of us who've ever had a breakup know what that feels like and know that in that moment we think it's going to be forever. And some people get stuck in that and they ruin their lives. And other people rebuild. So the most powerful message I've given at times like that is the message of, you're going to be okay. It's really hard right now and everything is upside down, but we're going to find a path to make you okay. So if I give that message, then eventually maybe they give it back to themselves. And you have to give it back to yourself over and over again before you actually believe it. So think about that message. How does it feel when I say to you, you're going to be okay? What's your first response? Do you reject it? Or do you go, oh, that's nice? Oh, I hope so. Your response to that statement will tell me where you are emotionally and if your negative self talk is really high. Think about negative people in your life. We all have them. We all know who they are. They're the people that you're around and you go, ugh, that was exhausting. They're so negative, and I absorb that negativity. So those people, the best thing to do is that you limit your contact. You don't hang out with them all the time. You don't have them right next to you. It's almost like that with your negative thoughts. You have to keep them to a minimum too. And some people actually are so stuck in their negative thoughts that they feel almost guilty when they're happy and they struggle with it. And people will say to me, I don't feel the same about the things I used to do. I used to love to do this XYZ thing. And when I do it now, it doesn't feel good anymore. Have you ever had that experience where you did something, you went out with friends, you went to a movie, and it just didn't feel the same? That's an indicator. That's an indicator that your fear and joy balance is very far off and that you can't even be present to look for that joy and that you might have some anxiety happening. I want you to think about your bad negative thoughts as something that you can change. And that's really what we're trying to talk about today is you have to understand that you have the ability to change them and it's actually you and only you. And I also want you to understand that you're in good company. Everybody does this. Everybody walks around with negative thoughts. It's just the percentage of how long they stay in it and how many they have that makes it a clinical problem. So don't be your own bully. Don't perpetuate it. You can change it. And I have a poem that I read this and it really made me think about the reality of what negative thoughts feel like. The poem is called Bad Thoughts by Afan Bapaker. I close my eyes and there I see dreams and thoughts in front of me. They race by like bugs on the ground and hit me in the head without a sound. They tell me what to do and what to say. They tell me how to live throughout each day. Stop, they won't, for they come in leagues, all at once in one big siege. I never know what they will bring, what pains they carry, what songs they sing. Thoughts of hurt and wrongs in my life, thoughts of failures, pain, and strife. Running wild, I cannot sleep, for their cut runs so very deep. What am I to do to block such hurt? A pain that won't cease until I'm planted in dirt? So I close my eyes and hope I see one happy thought that may finally save me. That's what it feels like, doesn't it? He really nailed it. And we're actually looking for that. We're looking for the happy thought. And it's not about saving us, it's about shifting us. We don't need to be saved from these thoughts. We just need to shift them and be aware of them and realize that we're doing it to ourselves. And it's a form of self-harm. To sit with negative thoughts over and over again, you hurt yourself. So, what are the thoughts typically saying? I can tell you from working with patients for years, there are pretty universal themes. And I want you to think about are these themes that you encounter? It's about body, money, and relationships. I'm sure there are others. We worry about what we said, what we did, but that's about relationships too sometimes. Body, money, and relationships. We compare ourselves to other people, which we have to stop doing, obviously. We create a sense of urgency around things. I got to do that. I got to do that. I got to do that. And we obsess about it. And we sometimes think a lot about disappointment. It's a big one that I really want us to think about. Disappointment is one of those emotions, almost like rejection, one of those feelings that's really hard to stomach. Because when you're disappointed, it means that what you expected didn't happen. And that's really sad. But how long you stay in it is a sign of your mental health. How you recover and get up from things is a sign of your resilience and your mental health. And if it's taking you a long time to get over a disappointment, you need to process that with someone. There are these ugly reminders that we give ourselves, almost like a bad parent keeping us in line. One of the big ones I hear from people is that they are unattractive. And they say that in a lot of different ways. And I want to blow that one right out of the water because what determines attractiveness, right? What determines worthiness? Stay away from those thoughts that tell you that you're not good enough or that you're compared to someone else, you are different. And if you stand next to someone and you feel less worthy because of your attractiveness, that's pointing to something, right? That's a thing in your own head that you've created that makes you less than other people. That one will ruminate. That one will come back. If you attach to that, that one comes back. If you've attached to the idea that you are unattractive, I need you to work on that. I need you to talk to somebody about it because that one is poisonous. I know people that waste their lives with that negative thought. I'm unattractive, therefore I'm not good enough, therefore I'm not worthy. Failure. One of the biggest human fears is failure. It's one of mine too. And I really have to work on it because if you are afraid of failure, you can end up with some real perfectionist kind of behaviors. And I do that one. It's very all or nothing. If I can't fail, that would be terrible. Well, what would happen if I failed? Well, I know myself well enough now, I'd get back up and I'd be fine. But failure is a big one for people. Are you thinking about failure? What are you afraid of failing at? And being not good enough. That's the perennial favorite of our sessions here, is that sometimes that root belief pops up in strange ways. So, how do we get out of our own way? How do we fix this? That's the important thing. And there's someone that I love, my favorite author, changed my life, Eckhart Tolle. And I haven't recommended any of his books yet because he's pretty intense and I don't want you to get scared off. But he changed my life because he taught me about being present and being in the moment and analyzing the fact that my thoughts might not be true. So I'm going to start you with an audio book, and it's a small one to get started with him because I want you to be introduced to this person who has this amazing way of explaining to you how to be present. So the book is called Breaking the Habit of Negative Thinking and Self-Talk by Eckhart Tolle. And I think that there's a lot in there about being present that helps you to be ready to sort of reprogram the way those thoughts occur in you. So, how do we do it in ourself? We reprogram daily. You realize that the situation you are in, you're allowed to be sad that day. You're absolutely allowed to react that day. But the next day, you're going to get up and you're going to start over. And we really aren't good at that most of the time. I have worked with people for a long time in the therapy chair, and I can tell you that most people are terrible at getting out of hard times because they will hold on to it and they will ruminate and make those thoughts race back and forth. And it is a useless behavior. And I can say that and you can hear that, but I need you to understand it that you having a bad day and then thinking about it over and over again and ruining a week is useless. There's another little two-word thing that I heard a long time ago and I really like, and it's adding the words not yet to something that you really want. I am not where I want to be yet. I am not there yet. It's a reminder that you're always in the process of something, that everything doesn't just happen for you. It doesn't happen for most of us. So the idea of giving yourself the grace of not yet or adding yet to the end of something that you wish for is really, really helpful. I do it too, is I wish I had that, but I don't have it yet. Important. You can change, but it takes time. So if you really want to get rid of that negative thinking and those repetitive loops, you have to be in it for the long haul. And that's okay. A month from now, would you like it to be a little different or not different at all or worse? So if you are redirecting this talk, if you are using your not yets, it's not going to change overnight, but it will change and it will get better. Progress, not perfection. And those are some words I'd like you to write down and put somewhere. The single biggest way that people succeed in therapy is by understanding that progress doesn't look like they might think it does. that they don't get better after one session or sometimes even 10 sessions. It's about progress, not perfection. And you can apply that to anything in your life that you are trying to do. Progress is acceptable, perfection is an ideal. So, another thing when we're thinking about negative thoughts, you don't have to please everyone. Think about how many negative thoughts you have about what you did wrong or what you did that might have upset someone. Or the one I hear all the time, which is, I'm going over that conversation in my head and I should have said this. You do not have to please everyone. And I want you to hear that. And I want you to think about how much of this rumination is about, I wish I had affected that person differently or said something different. Not real helpful. If you want to fix it, but you're not going to fix it by thinking about it over and over again. And there's one that I really want to talk about that's hard for some people to hear, and it's about the word victim. Plenty of people identify themselves as victims, and we are all at one point or another, unfortunately, most of us are victimized by something or someone, whether it's an illness or a person or a boss. The nature of humanity is that there are people out there that will victimize us, right? So there are going to be situations in your life when you're going to be a victim, but those are temporary situations. You are a victim of the thing in the moment. You are a victim of the thing and the suffering that it causes, but you are not in your personhood a victim. Victim mindset is very often what causes a lot of racing thoughts and ruminations. Why did this happen to me? Well, sometimes there's an answer for that. Sometimes there isn't. And bad things happen to good people all the time, and probably to you. But are you a victim? And I want you to really think about that. Because if I introduced myself to you and said, Hi, I'm Deborah. I'm a victim of domestic violence, of mental illness, of poverty at one point. Um, I don't introduce myself as a victim of all the things. I will talk about those things as things that I overcame, but I don't walk around feeling victimized by them. I did when they happened. So a lot of negative thinking is you might be carrying a victimhood because we have that thing in us that says it's not fair. Why did this happen? And that sometimes will turn us into people who get stuck in the problem. So there are some things that happen with other people that will keep you in negative thought loops. And I want to bring those up. People around us influence our thoughts. They influence our beliefs. We are social creatures shaped by people around us. So if you are around people that have negative behaviors, that often translates into your own negative thoughts. So I'm going to give you 5 C's. And these C words are going to be words that are going to indicate if a person is a negative person and if they might be bringing negativity to you. So the first C, complaining. Do you ever hang out with somebody and all they do is complain? It's horrible. It's absolutely horrible. I think we can all name a person who does nothing but complain. And what do you do when you get near them? You might complain along with them, right? Or you have to sit and listen to it. And what it does is it paints the sky black, right? You're in your sunny day and somebody comes along and complains and they take the sun away. So be careful around people who chronically complain. And I want you to be real analytical about this. Think about the people in your life. Is there somebody around you that every time you're with, you go right to complaints? It's very unhealthy behavior. And I'm not saying stay away from the person or just leave. Maybe it's something to note. Maybe you can steer the conversation in a different way. Criticizing. This is a big one. Um, there are a lot of people I've known over the years who are the most critical people. They spend their time with you talking about other people and how terrible they are, how they're wrong. And that one's really nasty because being critical of other people is, in my opinion, small mindedness. There was a quote I love, I think it was Eleanor Roosevelt, where she said, um, small-minded people talk about people, and intelligent people talk about things. And that's so important. Do you talk about things with the people that you're with, or do you talk about people? Talking about things is where we grow and where we learn. Criticizing other people is where we just deflect away from ourselves. The third C is concern. People that are overly concerned about things. And this is a tricky one because you can't really tell anyone the level that they should be concerned about things. But we all know people who kind of dip into obsession. I see a lot of this right now with the political climate, that a lot of people are very rightfully concerned that things are changing. And that's frightening. But should you walk around in a negative thought loop with that concern all of the time? I have had patients who do. And what happens is it alienates them. Because if all they're worried about is the political climate, they're not focusing on their life, on themselves, on their relationships, and they're carrying that negative thought over and over again, and it blocks out everything. So you probably have people in your life, especially in this political climate, where that's all they want to talk about. Their level of concern is probably too high. Commiserating, number 4. Commiserating is where you sit down and you say, yeah, me too. This is terrible. Commiserating is fun. It's helpful. It's how we bond with people. But it has to be kept to a minimum, or you end up drawn into a negative process that will stick with you after you leave that person. And the last one is catastrophizing. I love this word because catastrophizing is where we look at something and we make it horrible when it's actually a molehill, not a mountain. And this is a tricky one because sometimes I'll have patients sit across from me and I know they're catastrophizing. They're making something much bigger than it is. Now, it's very difficult for me to point that out because to them it is very big. But this goes back to how in a moment something can feel really big. But when we let it go or we adjust, we don't have to carry it and have negative thinking. So I want you to think about those 5 C's: complaining, criticizing, concern, commiserating, and catastrophizing. Those are the things that perpetuate negative thinking in yourself and in other people. And how much fun is it when you're around somebody who's light and happy and shows you the beautiful things that are happening? And I think of this, if you think about social media, you can look at what comes up on your feed. And if what's coming up on your feed, and let's say you're a person who's had trauma, and if everything that comes up on your feed is about trauma and the damage done and what it did and how it can affect you, great, learn that. I want you to learn that. But if there's no balance, remember fear and joy. If there's no balance there, it's very dangerous because you're getting that plug directly into your brain. So my feed has a healthy balance of psychological concepts and baby goats because baby goats give me joy, especially in pajamas. So look that up. It's very cute. So joy and fear, balance those out. So I want to bring up a very sort of deep point here. We're talking about negative thoughts and what's in your head and what you get stuck in. But whenever I see that, I know there's a deeper root that, yes, it can be from being around negative people or having things happen to you. But there is a deeper root that I want to bring to your attention today. And the word is shame. The root is shame. Shame is a very poisonous thing. And shame is something that is a normal part of human emotions, but is supposed to be a fleeting thing. And I could tell you that I could take all the people on my couch and all 10 of them, if I had 10 people, and I would bet you 9 of them would have a shame. a deep rooted shame that drives a lot of the way they think about themselves, a lot of the behaviors that they have, and a lot of the way they interact with the world. And it's so unfortunate because some of these people walk around thinking that they have a deep, dark secret. And if someone only knew that about them, they would think they were terrible. Well, I hate to tell you, I like to tell you, everybody has that. Every one of us has things in us that we are ashamed of, things that we've done that we wish we hadn't done, that maybe we shoplifted in high school, or maybe we were really mean when we broke up with someone, or maybe a little worse. Maybe we weren't nice to our kids in the way we needed to be. There are big shames and little shames, but it doesn't matter because all of them are poisonous. And I want to tell you about how it's supposed to go, how it's not supposed to end up with poisonous shame that you let pollute you. When something happens, you're supposed to feel guilty. Guilt is an important emotion. You need to feel guilty. If you do something wrong, I want you to feel guilty about it for a minute because the guilt is what points you to your values. Oh, it was wrong. That wasn't who I am. Never going to do that again. Guilt is healthy and guilt is fleeting because the guilt points you to putting everything in the right place and it should go away. We all have a past, but it shouldn't be living with us now. So guilt is okay in small doses. The next sort of step in that is regret. Oh, I wish I hadn't done that. Oh, I regret doing that. I wish I had done that differently. Regret's more powerful because regret stays, and regret we connect to the trajectory of our lives. If I had not done that, it would have been so much different. I regret that I didn't go to school in my 20s and I waited till my 40s. I sincerely regret that, but I can't get stuck in it. And then the next step is shame. So when we get into shame, shame is where the guilt and regret go wrong. The guilt and regret are supposed to be fleeting and related to the act itself that happened, or the thing that happened, or the way that you did something. But shame is where we make it a mark on who we are. I feel guilty, therefore I am shameful. I regret, therefore I am shameful. And it's terrible that all of us are walking around with shame about something. And I would love for you to use this as a journal prompt, as a just a thought that you can sit with and think about, what are you feeling shameful about? And is it even worthy of that much attention or guilt? There are people that walk around with their shame from one thing their whole lives, and they never stop thinking about it, and it poisons them. And when they tell me out loud, sometimes finally, what their shame is about, it's usually not that bad. So I need you to examine your own shame. And if you are thinking about it or carrying it in who you are, it's feeding that negative thought loop in your head. Our mistakes are the key to our growth. I've made tons of them. I still make them. And now I'm at the point in my life where I can look at them and go, oh, that mistake was a catalyst. That mistake created where I am right now. There were mistakes that were in my life that were huge at the time, and I felt victimized by, what happened as a result. But I know now that they were part of why I got here, and they weren't all pleasant. And I don't think, oh, it was great they happened. No, not at all. But you are allowed to make mistakes without shame. You are allowed to make mistakes without thinking about them 100 times. And you have to do that changeover in your head about, what am I going to learn from this? The thing was bad. I did a bad thing, maybe, but what am I going to learn from this? So, the other deep, dark thing that I think rests in negative thoughts is the idea of vision and the vision that we have for ourselves. I believe that every person within them has a very clear idea that they might not have access to about what they want their life to be. It's the making the path to it where people get a little lost, which is why I love my job, because my job is to help people determine what their vision is and help them find a path to it. So I want to explain what I mean by vision. Vision is really how you want to live your life every day. It's not about the end goal as much. It's about how do you want to live your life every day. So if I look at my life and the vision that I have, I want to do a lot of things. I want to change the world. But the real vision in there is I want to create a life where I can feel peaceful and content and useful, right? So does that look like a certain bunch of things happening? Sure, it does. But my vision really is about my day to day life and what I want it to look like. So, are you connected to your vision? Do you know what your vision for the future is? And yeah, it can be about a house or a car or a job or a degree or a person. That's okay. But it's really about what those things will make you feel. And I bet when you think about that vision, you don't think about yourself sitting in negative thought loops. When I get there, I'll be happy. Maybe a little idealistic. You're always going to be balancing your joy and your fear, but it really is about seeing something for yourself that is you getting the life that you want. And we don't get all the things we want, most of us, but we can aim toward getting most of those things and hope for most of those things. And sometimes that vision is what keeps us out of the negative thought loops. One of my favorite strategies for keeping yourself on the right track is to create things that remind you of what you want. And sometimes it could be a picture on your phone. I've had people have little photo albums that they carry in their bag of places that they love or they want to see. It can be a song that reminds you of a time that you felt joy. It can be something that you read. But I need you to surround yourself with things outside of you that connect you to the vision. And what happens is the negative thoughts in your head take you away from your vision and they pull you back and they tell you that you can't have anything that you want and that life is generally bad, which I don't believe is true. So, another part of vision is understanding the difference between what's real vision and what's fantasy. A lot of people have idealistic fantasies in their head about what they think they should have. I should have the perfect mate. They should be beautiful and rich. Well, if you stick with that, you might get lucky enough to have that. But is that realistic or is that fantasy? I'm going to have a house on 20 acres with 26 bedrooms. Fantasy. But those fantasies can pollute our vision because when we buy our first house and it's small and it doesn't have 26 bedrooms, we might go, it's not good enough. No, it's just where we are right now. So think about the difference between what fantasies you have and what real vision you have. Because this can trip you up in relationships and in career trajectories because um, we might find that what's in front of us is just not good enough instead of seeing it as a step towards something. I always think of the idea of losing weight and how people beat themselves up over it and how they say, "Well, I only lost a pound this week." Well, there are 52 weeks this year. 52 pounds at the end of the year wouldn't be so bad. But our impatience tells us we should always be doing better. And that's the parrot. You're a failure. You're not good enough. You're not doing enough in the right way. It's bad enough when we have people around us that do that, but don't do it to yourself. I have a quick reading I really like, and I know I already did a poem, but this reading was so perfect for what we're talking about today. And you know, I love Maya Angelou. We've talked about her before. And this is called I've Learned. I've learned that no matter what happens or how bad it seems today, life does go on and it will be better tomorrow. I've learned that you can tell a lot about a person by the way they handle these three things: a rainy day, lost luggage, and tangled Christmas tree lights. I've learned that regardless of your relationship with your parents, you'll miss them when they're gone from your life. I've learned that making a living is not the same as making a life. I've learned that life sometimes gives you a second chance. I've learned that you shouldn't go through life with a catcher's mitt on both hands. You need to be able to throw something back. I've learned that whenever I decide something with an open heart, I usually make the right decision. I've learned that even when I have pains, I don't have to be one. I've learned that every day you should reach out and touch someone. People love a warm hug or a friendly pat on the back. I've learned that I still have a lot to learn. I've learned that people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. I read that poem not because of how you're making other people feel. I read it because you will never forget how you make yourself feel, and you will create your world by how you make yourself feel. And I want you to make sure that your percentage of negative thoughts is not 80. Your life will change completely if you went from 80% to 10%, which is still too much, but your life will change. So, what are our takeaways for today? Not yet is okay. Progress, not perfection. Guilt is temporary, and you deserve to attach to a vision for yourself that is not negative. I want you to examine your thoughts. I want you to challenge them, and I want you to attach to new ones. Figure out what is missing in your life and head toward it. But don't beat yourself up on the ride, because you are going to be heading toward one thing or another the whole time that you're alive. And I hope that you are, but you're not going to beat yourself up as you get there. So I'm glad you were here. And I hope that you took something from this, even the tiniest bit, to take that percentage down. And I hope that you join us next time, because next time we have a very exciting topic that a lot of people ask me about, which is dreams. Everybody wants to understand their dreams, and there are a million ways out there to interpret dreams, but I'm going to give you some that are based in psychology and based in my own experience. So tune in next time for that. So, my sunshines, go out there and have a great couple of weeks. Get out there and reduce those negative thoughts. Stop the complaining and stop the criticizing and find the sunshine. Bye.